Hey, this is Frank Honus, and I want to welcome you to the Pure Life Podcast, helping individuals live with sexual integrity through Jesus Christ. Hey everyone, Frank Honus here, and welcome to episode 86 of the Pure Life Podcast. Hope that you're having a fantastic week, and really getting close now to episode 100, which I'm pretty excited about. I shared a little bit with you guys last week about that podcast. My wife, Tracy Honus, will be joining me in that podcast for a really exclusive kind of interview, really talking again about the spouse side of sex addiction. You know, what the wife, whether you're a wife or a husband of someone who has a sexual addiction, what that feels like and what that's like for you, what you experience in what you experience in through the addiction process, the feelings that you have, and just all kinds of emotions going on there. So my wife Tracy is going to be talking to us about that. I want to continue our conversation this week about sexual addiction and recovery with a question. I really just want to focus on one question this week on the podcast, a question that you and I really need to be asking, especially if you are one who's walking in sexual recovery, from pornography, from lust, from fantasy, and whatnot. It's really a question that you need to keep in your mind, the forefront of your mind on a daily basis, and it's this: what am I learning in recovery? What am I learning in recovery? And so really, the main idea here is that asking this question, what am I learning in recovery, on a daily or weekly basis is really a very important step towards your healing, and towards your wholeness, towards sexual wholeness. Porn addiction is obviously overwhelms a person to where they're really unable to see any hope for recovery. I mean, think about it when you were walking in, addiction, and maybe you still are. You're still struggling with that addiction, still struggling with porn. How incredibly overwhelming it is to you. I think about my life and how it just felt like there was just this incredible weight on my shoulders, a sense of guilt, shame, no idea where to turn, and I had no idea what to do. And so, porn addiction overwhelms a person. And to the point, like I said, where there is, this lack of ability to even be able to see any hope for recovery. And so when a person begins to walk in recovery, it's very, very difficult to see any progress they might be making. This cloud just kind of covers you, and there's just no sense of how, that I can break free from this, that I can, ever be a man or a woman of sexual integrity. So I think asking yourself this question really helps you to keep in focus that you are indeed on a journey. Recovery from sex addiction takes time. It's a process. I've said it time and time again on this podcast, and to men and women that, to husbands and wives, that sexual addiction is not an overnight thing. So this question will actually help you to kind of keep that process and keep the progress that you are making at the forefront of your mind. What you'll find is at the very, very beginning of walking into recovery from sexual addiction, you'll struggle to be able to answer this question. Maybe you'll struggle to be able to even ask this question, but you'll definitely struggle probably to be able to answer it. But I'd say within 2 to 3 months, you really should be finding some solid, concrete, learning and knowledge of really how well you're doing and what you're learning in your recovery. So a great way to be able to process this kind of question is really with a support group. And I know recently on the podcast we talked about support groups and how incredibly important support groups are. If you didn't get to listen to that podcast, go on back to the archives and to Stepping Stones in Recovery, which we just finished, and look up that podcast, Finding a Support Group. There's lots more detailed information about how you can do that and look in your area. But this is a really great way to begin to process this kind of question in your heart, in your mind, is to do it with a group of men, a group of people who love you, a group of people that are walking with you through addiction, that they themselves have addictions, and are walking in recovery and learning about the recovery. Support groups help you to focus on the positive of your recovery when you might be thinking all about the negative. Support groups help you to really keep the positive, what's going well in front of your heart, in front of your mind. Support groups help shed some light on issues about your recovery that might be leaving you confused. That's one of the incredible strengths of a group, is you might have questions, you might have things that you're trying to understand about recovery, but you need other people to kind of fill the gap there and really help you to ask those questions, to kind of fill in the blanks. So support groups help in that way. And then lastly, support groups help encourage you when things are not going well, because obviously there will be, in all reality, there will be slips, there will be relapses, there will be falls, and there will be times that you'll mess up. And so that's where support groups help out to encourage you and to keep your head lifted up. So how can you keep this question at the forefront of your mind? How do you do it? Well, I want to just suggest a few really practical ways to kind of keep this question, what am I learning about in my recovery, at the forefront of my mind. The first way is just simply writing it down on an index card. What if you wrote it down on an index card and you posted it or hung it somewhere in your car, so that every day on your way to work or as you're traveling, you're able to see that question. You're able to think in your mind, okay, how am I doing this week? How am I doing today in my recovery? What am I learning? How am I growing? So, write down on an index card. What about keeping a journal? Keeping a journal can be a really great way of, keeping track of your learnings, of what you're learning from recovery, the things that you're growing in, and just simply writing down some thoughts every single day or each week or whatever. Daily journal is probably the best. It doesn't have to be very long. It can just be a few sentences or a few words. What am I learning about in recovery? Keeping that on, and especially, keeping it on paper. That's a great way. And then the last way is talk with a supportive friend or a group, like we said, support group, at least once a week. Pick up the phone, send an email at the very least. I think, phone calls and face-to-face meetings are better than email and, texting and things like that, even though you can do that. But find someone that you can talk to. Find a supportive friend, an accountability partner, a support group to kind of help you with that question. They might even help you they might challenge you and ask you that question if you ask them to. I want you to ask me how I'm doing. What am I learning this week in my recovery? So a few different practical ways there. And the bottom line of this whole week in this week's podcast is that if we aren't learning, we're regressing. If we aren't learning, we're losing ground. And we're losing a lot of potential healing that we could be experiencing in recovery. And so I want to put a warning out there, just kind of just so you know, warning here, ready? That asking this question, this isn't like a special prescription pill. This isn't a magic pill that you can take to totally never look at porn ever again, and for things to be perfect. Because the truth is, it won't necessarily make recovery easier, but it will allow you to be able to keep your eyes focused on the growth points of your recovery journey and the progress you're making. So it really will help you keep perspective and to keep focus on where you're going and where you need to head in your recovery. So that's this week's kind of thought and challenge for you, is to ask yourself that question on a daily basis. What am I learning in recovery? What are you learning in recovery? Keep that question at the forefront of your mind. Ask yourself that question. Journal it. Never lose that, because if you lose that and you lose what you're learning, then that means you're going to be probably falling back into your old ways, your old addiction. And there really is no hope to be able to see when you're bombarded in addiction. It's hard to see the progress you're making. It's hard to see the healing that's taking place. So I want to encourage you to do that. The last thing I want to share with you this week on the podcast is this past week, I began kind of an Instagram, if you will, Instagram campaign called Porn Destroys. And you can find that on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, actually. All three of those by searching hashtag Porn Destroys. Hashtag Porn Destroys. And so what I've been doing is simply, sharing a little photo and, each day sharing a different kind of way that porn destroys a person's life. And so you can go back, search that on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, as well as purelifepodcast.com, hashtag porn destroys. And you can find out those. I wrote a little blurb up of the way porn destroys, our mind, our identity, who we are, and then what we can do about it. So I would love for you to spread that, to share the awareness, spread the awareness of porn addiction and the way that porn really does destroy a person's life. Please search that and check that out and push that to all your friends. Would love for you to spread that around. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching, hopefully, and listening to the Pure Life Podcast this week. You can check us out. Email me at any time, frank@purelifepodcast.com, if you have any questions whatsoever. And as always, keep your eyes on the website, purelifepodcast.com. Hope you guys have a great week, and I wish you a pure life. God bless. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the podcast this week. I want to encourage you to check out our website, purelifepodcast.com, for a lot of great blogs and resources and podcasts from previous episodes to help you along in your journey for sexual purity. Remember, you can listen to the podcast on our website, iTunes, and Stitcher Radio. And if you need to contact me for any reason, if you have questions or comments, email me at frank@purelifepodcast.com. That's frank@purelifepodcast.com. See you next week.